Welcome to This Week in Legal Blogging for January 14th, 2021, in which we talk with leading bloggers from across the legal industry. This program is presented by LexBlog, which provides lawyers with turnkey digital publishing solutions and strategic consulting for 16 years. Find out all about what it does at lexblog.com/products. And you can find all the back episodes of the video recordings of this show on YouTube at youtube.com/LexBlog. We are also available as an audio podcast, and you can find us wherever fine podcasts are played, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify and whatever your listening app of choice is. I am your host, Bob Ambrogi. I write the blog Law Sites and also have the podcast Law Next. And today I'm getting double teamed today. This is the first time in our many months of doing the show that we have two guests all at one time, but just one blog to talk about, and that's the SmallGovCon.com blog. And joining me today are the authors, two of the authors of that blog, including the founder of the blog, Stephen Koprince. Steve, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for doing it. And Shane McCall, who is the editor and author of the blog. Shane, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Great to be here.
Yeah. So did I get that right, Shane? Steve, you kind of started the blog, and then Shane at some point became editor of the blog. How does that work?
Yeah, that's right. So I'll talk about what I'm doing founding it, and then Shane's role. But yeah, so I founded the blog back in 2012, and for a while was actually the only author of the blog for a few years there, and eventually got to a place where I was wanting to pull back from some of the things that I was overextending myself with, and Shane took over the day-to-day. There you go. And Shane took over and really has done such an incredible job running the blog since I stepped back from that. So I still write posts for the blog, but I'm no longer managing it. And frankly, I wouldn't have it any other way. It's in great hands.
Yeah. Good. How's that work from your end, Shane?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. I kind of took over the day-to-day management of it. After writing posts for a number of years, kind of took over the organization, the topics, picking out topics, making sure, doling out responsibilities for who's going to be writing it, and making sure kind of the schedule stays, we stay on top of the schedule, sort of making sure we always have some good content out there. One of the things is kind of balancing kind of the ongoing posts that we have, and then we always like to post about, legal updates, late breaking news, and try to get ahead of those really important updates in our field of practice. So kind of balancing all those things.
Yeah. Well, I want to circle back to the blog, but let me go back and ask you each to tell us, Steve, maybe you could start by telling us about your firm and about your practice at the firm.
Yeah, so our firm is a boutique firm, 5 attorneys, and we focus exclusively on assisting U.S. federal government contractors. And so that's our exclusive client base. Most of our clients are small businesses, but not all. We have some medium and large size businesses as well. But that's where the SmallGovCon comes from. It's government contracting news and notes for small businesses, who are the kind of the bread and butter of our client base. And we help those folks, whether it's figuring out all the compliance issues that go into contracting with the government, signing up for these special certification programs that give you special contracting preferences, actually negotiating certain things with the government in terms of your modifications to contracts and things like that. And then occasionally getting involved in dispute resolution. You're not getting paid by the government. You think the wrong company won the contract, those sorts of things. And so it's a niche practice for sure, but we have worked with hundreds of clients, over 1,000, I believe, coast to coast. So it's been a really good practice for us.
I was going to ask that because you're based in Lawrence, Kansas, but your clients are not just local; they're all across the country.
Right. I mean, we're pretty unique, and other government contracts firms operate like this too, in that we are customer based rather than location based. And so our clients are folks who sell to the government or might be a subcontractor to someone who sells to the government. But that being the case, they're all falling under federal law, and so we only apply federal law, not state. And we have clients from coast to coast, even a few overseas. And so it's the processes in this field are set up to allow filings when you need to do them, whether it's a court or administrative tribunal electronically from anywhere. It's all set up to allow folks to do this kind of law from anywhere. And so we're fortunate to be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah. And Shane, I assume your practice parallels that, but tell us about what you do.
Yeah, no, we all at the firm kind of specialize in that niche for helping small business government contractors. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it kind of covers the gamut from on a daily basis we're doing transactional assistance, partnership type agreements and other things kind of a little bit unique to federal contracting. And helping clients with that and negotiating those contracts, and then kind of doing administrative litigation as well. So that can be anything from, litigation based on the size of the business is a common thing, or socioeconomic status, like Steve was mentioning. In all of those, there's administrative litigation processes that you have to go through, and you can challenge other contractors. So we help with that a lot. And then also kind of just preparing clients or counseling them to avoid those types of things so they don't get, so if they ever do get protested or challenged on one of their government contracting statuses, they can be prepared to defend that. And then we step in and defend them and do a little bit of appeal work on that as well. So it kind of covers both sides of the, transactional and litigation divide a little bit.
Yeah. How has the pandemic impacted your practice, if at all, positively or negatively?
Yeah, I mean, we are fortunate in that we were not the sort of folks who go to court very often. We were doing things electronically to begin with. So during the period of time when a lot of courts were shut or juries weren't being convened, that didn't affect us. And we're also fortunate in that our practice didn't rely on folks coming in to meet with us in person very often, frankly. I mean, because they're all over the country, we've already been doing business via phone, email, Zoom, things like that. So yeah, I would say on a day-to-day basis, other than we gave folks the opportunity who work for us, if they want to work from home, liberal opportunity to do that. And some people have done that, and some not, wearing masks around the office, but really it hasn't had a major impact on our day-to-day. We've worked with clients and tried to counsel some of them, because a lot of our clients are small businesses and they've been impacted in different ways, especially those who are, I think, exposed to pieces of the commercial market that have been heavily affected in the service industries, specifically restaurant, catering, things like that. So we've had to deal with that from a client service perspective, but I think we're really fortunate. I count ourselves business-wise as fortunate that we were not in a position where we were brick and mortar, or in a situation where we would not be able to take our work offline and do it remotely.
Yeah, interesting. Have there been legal issues specific to government contracting that have come out of this? I mean, there's obviously in the commercial sector, there's been so many contractual issues that have come up. Is it similar in government contracting?
I can take that one.
Yeah.
Well, there has been a little bit of a change. I guess overall, there was some uncertainty at the beginning of the pandemic. How government spending would change. I'd say for probably most of our clients, there was a little bit of a slowdown, and then it picked up or maintained. Kind of government spending stayed pretty even, or even went up in some areas. So some of our clients, kind of in an odd way, are doing all right during the pandemic, because government spending is still pretty strong. we've had to work with some clients on some contracts that had to get, delayed, modified, or where the contractor was not able to complete the work. So we have had to help a few clients on that end due to COVID-related kind of interruptions to their ability to do the work. So that's where we've helped. But a lot of the underlying work we do has kind of remained the same after a little bit of a lull or a slowdown the first couple months.
Steve, you started the blog SmallGovCon.com in 2012. What were you thinking at the time? Why did you want to start a blog?
Yeah, I mean, what I was thinking at the time was I'm looking for a way to market a niche legal practice from a guy nobody at the time had ever heard of to a nationwide audience, and I don't have much money to do it. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Were you just starting your practice at that point, or?
I'd been practicing for a while for firms in the Washington, D.C. area, but now I was going out on my own for the first time and really selling myself and having the opportunity to develop my own client base. So I had a few clients that came with me from my old firms, but it was not a lot. I was not the guy there. People went with the senior partners usually when they call those firms. So I'm in a situation where I'm now going out on my own and saying I think I can do this, but how do I take a practice and sell it to everybody coast to coast and do it in a way that's cost effective and do it in a way that I'm going to stick with it and be able to continue to do it day in and day out. And so blogging was the right fit because I enjoy writing, and so that it's not too expensive to start a good blog. I did pay someone to develop the website, and really I felt that it was something I could stick with, which proved to be true, especially once I got other folks like Shane involved who were helping write, which is very, very helpful. Yeah. And I really felt that my philosophy on sales really is the show don't tell. That I didn't want to go to potential clients say I'm the best lawyer ever, I know all my stuff. I wanted to show them that I knew what I was talking about and give them information that would be helpful in their day-to-day, and thereby indirectly sell the practice, and they could call me when they had an issue. And so that was my mindset going into it, and it proved to be a successful one. So I was proven right. Not always proven right, but in that case, it worked out really well. And I'd say one benefit along the way is, and I imagine Shane will tell you the same, is it also made me better at my day job, because then finding topics to blog and explaining them to the public at large, I became more aware of everything that was going on in the field and had to become an expert on these cases that I might not have otherwise run into just in doing my work for the clients. So it also improved my abilities as a lawyer, and I can't tell you how many times I've had a client ask a question or needed to write something in a brief, and I say, I think I wrote a blog on that topic a few years ago. And I go search our own blog for authority, and then there it is.
Yeah. So I wonder if you could just elaborate on. I mean, you set out with this goal of building your practice, and you said the blog was successful in helping you do that. Can you elaborate? How was it? How did it? What did you see? How did the blog help drive the growth of your practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think over the years, and I don't have the stats at my fingertips here, but we've tried to keep track of when clients call first me and then our broader firm. Now it's now 5 attorneys, as I mentioned. Where are they coming from? How did they hear from us? Where did they? Why they decided to call us instead of the other guy? And so from the get-go, the biggest driver of business has always been the blog. And people say, "Oh, I've been reading your posts for a while, and now I need something, and now I'm calling you." And then it had a secondary effect that those blog posts started establishing credibility in the field and helped me get invited to speak at conferences and meet other people that I wouldn't have otherwise met. And that has a spillover effect. Some people say, well, I met you at conference X. Well, I wouldn't have been at conference X if I hadn't written the blog post that got the attention of the organizers that caused them to invite me in the first place. So it's really been, I still think it's the cornerstone of our business development. And even when clients come in from other sources, often you can trace at least part of that back to the fact that the blog has been out there and has been pretty well read in the industry. Yeah.
Shane, at what point did you come into the firm, and at what point did you get roped into the blogging part of it?
Well, actually, I did bankruptcy law for a number of years, and then was looking for a change, and that was in 2017. So I've been at it for a few years. It actually was one of the selling points for moving to this firm, was the kind of focused attack you could have on marketing, rather than it be sort of just about, meeting people that it's kind of socially or having connections in the community. You can kind of focus your marketing efforts on the blog. And that was from the get-go, from the initially hearing about the firm. That was one of the big things that was mentioned, that working on the blog is part of part of being an attorney, part of the marketing effort. So it definitely gives you a good focus for how to get your name out there, and as Steve mentioned, also a way to hone your expertise, so that you're kind of current on everything that's going on when you get a call from a prospective client. So yeah, I actually the blog was sort of a selling point for me joining the firm, and it's continued to be that way. And I guess to answer one of your questions, basically from day one, you kind of start writing your first blog post when you start at Koprince Law. So right from the get-go.
Yep. Yep. Throw it right into the fire.
Yeah. Yeah. And at what point did you become the editor of the blog?
I think that was maybe about a year or so ago. So after I'd been there for a couple of years and kind of gotten used to the pace and the style of writing, all that kind of stuff, and also kind of having attention for detail and making sure things are consistent and accurate, and being good at reviewing things like that. That's what kind of led me to start being the editor of the blog. So.
Yeah. So what does that mean? What do you do as editor of the blog? What are your roles?
Well, it's reviewing all the posts, for one thing, sort of as I said, making sure they're consistent, making sure they're accurate, and also have a good kind of tone that's not too much legalese, pretty plain English, and also, at times even a little bit fun when we can do it. Trying to put a little humor into the blog as much as you can, and kind of encouraging that. And then it's kind of just wrangling, making sure we have coverage on important things that just happen, like late breaking news, but also generating ideas for fresh content and reviewing the ideas that other people have, and kind of keeping everybody on schedule is a big part of it. Yeah.
How many people do you have writing for it altogether?
Well, all the attorneys write on it. So we've got 5 of us, kind of doing maybe a post a week or something like that. And then if something big comes out, there's kind of cyclical things in government contracting. There's a new laws come out at certain times of the year, and we all kind of write posts on that. So we do a few extra every once in a while, and just to make sure we're keeping the coverage fresh and up to date. And spreading it around, so it's not one person writing all the blog posts too. So
yeah. So how do you figure that out? How do you manage who's doing what, and who's following what, and who's tracking what?
Well,
Steve mentioned that something I say often: blogging makes you smarter, because it does force you to track all these developments in your field, whatever your field is. But so how do you kind of balance that with all the members of your team here?
Well, we kind of use a calendar, like a publication calendar, to try to keep everybody on task and kind of on the same schedule. But of course, being lawyers, things come up, and you got a brief to write or something like that. So it always gets moved around, but then we try to kind of come back to it. So it's about everybody writing one post a week, and then we kind of spread the writing around, so everyone has an opportunity to do it, and so it's not sort of all falling on one person. We try to keep it pretty even-handed amongst all the attorneys.
Yeah. So Steve, who are the readers of your blog? Who do you orient this towards?
Yeah, it's a great question. I should mention, by the way, with Shane taking over, he's the one who developed the editorial calendar and all these. I was doing it completely ad hoc, so I mean, he added a lot to the process that really formalized this when he took it over. This has really improved the way the content is published, I think. So I give him a lot of credit for that, because I was just willy-nilly, like, whatever. People send me something, and then sometimes people write on the same topic, and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's a good question. So who do we orient the blog to? Because when new folks join the firm, new attorneys join the firm, they're starting to write. one thing Shane mentioned, which is really important to us, is trying to write in plain English and not write like lawyers. And we found it's very difficult for folks who are new to sometimes write about the law without writing like a lawyer. In other words, normal people, if I'm just talking to someone who's a business owner, I'm not going to be wanting to see all these ids and Latin and all this sort of stuff, because that's not how normal people write. That's how we're taught to write in law school, and that's legal brief style, but that's not our audience. And so I've tried to make it clear, and Shane has too, now that we're training new lawyers to write on the blog, the people we're directing it at are not lawyers. They can read it, that's fine, but they're not lawyers, they're not judges. They are, we're directing it at potential clients, generally owners or higher level officers of small businesses that either are government contractors or would like to become federal contractors. And that's who you want to have in mind when you're writing the post. That other folks read it, by the way. We get a lot of government readers, contracting officers, government employees that read it all the time. We can say when you look at I get comments, you see statistics, other attorneys will read it, people like that. But we always keep in mind that our audience that we're aiming for is that small business owner or officer who is already a government contractor, so we don't need to explain, or they want to be, we don't need to explain the very basic stuff, but they also don't want to wade through what looks like a legal brief. They want to be told in plain English what a legal development means for them, what the practical effect of this is going to be for them. So that's our mindset, and trying to keep that focus, I think, helps. When we get positive comments about the blog, it's often just that, like, wow, you guys really break it down in a way that we can understand, and people appreciate that when they're often used to seeing lawyers just unable to divorce themselves from writing like lawyers, which again is right, what we're taught to do in law school, and I get it, but there's a time and a place. You don't write your thank you letter to grandma after Christmas like you're writing with a bunch of ids and internal citations and things like that. So we try to keep that focus on the business owner, and I think that's really helped all of us improve our writing in a kind of client-directed manner.
Yeah, I was looking at you have on the about page for your blog, you have sort of like a little FAQ, and one of the questions you answer on your about page is, why haven't you posted my rumor? Do you get people sending you rumors? I mean, do you get people sending you kind of questions that they want you to write about, or topics that they think you should write about?
I'll let Shane speak to it too, but I've gotten a few in my day. Certainly there are some people in government contracting who, I mean, it's thousands and thousands of people involved, and it's all sorts of people, but I have certainly had people who had a bone to pick with some agency or some official, or thought the government had done them wrong in some way. And right or wrong, this is not the forum for that. They wanted us to essentially go after the contracting officer that they didn't like on a blog post. Why aren't you posting? I told you this contracting officer discriminated against me. Where's my blog post on this? Well, that's not what our blog is about. We're writing about published decisions and rules and things of that nature. So it's not the most common thing that comes up, but I've absolutely had those when I was managing the blog, those back and forth with a few people, and I finally put that in the FAQ just so I can say, well, it's just our policy. It's not you, man. It's just our policy.
Right. Yeah. You getting that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I've had that too. Basically the comments go into an email to us, and then some people will just kind of go back and forth about a certain policy change they'd like to see, and we say, yeah, that'd be great. It's a good idea, and they'll just kind of go off and kind of have a nice back and forth with us, although we're not really able to make those policy changes, but we support them sometimes. So it's nice getting the feedback, as long as people aren't too angry about it. Yeah. Definitely prefer the people that give us the kudos and nice comments on the blog, which is pretty frequent.
Yeah. Shane, you mentioned earlier that one of your roles as editor is to kind of ensure consistency around the blog. Do you do something like have a style sheet or a sort of a format you're trying to adhere to? What do you think, what should a blog post look like? What do you like to see in a blog post? How do you like to see them structured?
Well, yeah, Steve and I did come up with a little style sheet. Kind of the things, a few things that we were already mentioning about, keeping out the legalese and keeping the citations down and things like that. One thing that we do kind of encourage is putting a little it's I don't know what you call it exactly, but putting a little of your personality into it when you have the opportunity, or putting some links to occasionally putting links to funny videos or things like that. There's nothing wrong with that when you're doing legal blogging. So, but it's more about kind of keeping it to one issue, making sure you get that one point across, and not trying to really, I always think, don't try to overcomplicate it. Don't try to put in every holding, every jurisdictional issue, that you'd normally see when you were doing it in law school. Maybe, take most of that out, focus on that one holding and explain that holding, then give the examples, and then maybe explain it again. So it's about kind of keeping it focused on one point, and one point that's going to be really important to contractor and entrepreneur out there. If it's about jurisdiction, that could be a big point for them, but you got to phrase it in a way that it doesn't sound like just a legal argument, but it's like, hey, how could you lose business if you don't know this one? If you don't know this rule about jurisdiction, how does it kind of equate to your bottom line about losing a contract? So it always is coming back to that one issue and how it could make or break a contractor out there.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, we in the style sheet, the same thing. We try to hone, as Shane is saying, and I've said from the start, our readers, our target readers that you mentioned, Bob, they don't care about cases. They don't want us to blog a case. They care about an issue. They care about a law. They care about what's relevant to them. And they don't care about, this case went to the lower court and then bounced back up here and then it was back on a remand. They don't care about that. They want to know the holding and what mattered. And a lot of these cases will have 4 holdings. Only one of them is relevant, or maybe if 2 of them are, we'll write 2 separate blog posts so that we can really hone in on the specific item that a specific reader might want. Again, keeping in mind that our readers, not being target readers, not being lawyers, judges, don't care about a case. They care about a holding. They care about an issue.
Yeah. Does it? How does it kind of fit into your schedule, the schedules of the attorneys in your firm? I mean, I guess you talked about the fact you've got a calendar, you all try and do one a week or something. Do you try and maintain a balance between, practicing law and thinking about the blog and keeping up with the topics and all of that? How do you kind of work all of those things together?
Well, I would say, the legal work comes first, but then we always have to have the blogging as kind of something you think about every day, because it's such an important business driver for our firm. So, sometimes, as I said, if something really, big comes out that we're working on, that we have to get, completed, and everyone's kind of working on it, we don't have a rule that you have to post every day. It's just, it's the goal to put something out about every day. But we all know something comes up. And then the other thing we try to think about is, hey, when there's we have a little bit more time during the day and it's not so busy on legal work, start drafting another post and just kind of have it ready if we need to fill something in, fill in a gap later in the schedule.
Yeah, that's a ambitious schedule. Even with a number of bloggers contributing to it. I mean, I've talked to some larger firms with many more lawyers on their blogging teams, and they're happy if they get 1 a week up or something. So it's great that you're doing that. What do you do, if anything, to promote the blog and build the readership on the blog?
Yeah, a few things that we do, and Shane, of course, you chip in as well. We use social media, and so we do make sure our posts go out on LinkedIn, which we've been working recently at trying to grow our readership through LinkedIn, because a lot of our clients, prospective clients, are pretty active on that platform. We've long been developing a mailing list, and so at the end of every month or sometime early in the new month, we'll do a roundup of 6 to 10 of our top posts, put them in a newsletter, mail those out to our mailing list, completely free mailing list. And we try to promote the blog every time we do a lot of, as I mentioned, now it's webinars, a lot of presentations and public speaking. And each time I just finished one up, and I encourage the audience, hey, go sign up for our newsletter, read our blog. People would ask a question. Well, that rule hasn't come out yet, but when it does, we'll be posting it on our blog to try to drive that readership a little bit.
Yeah. Shane, anything to add to that? Is it promoting?
We kind of use the blog as kind of the central, hub, and then link our social media back to that, or link back to it in presentations or on LinkedIn, and then that way it's all sort of tied up in that same idea that you can go to smallgovcon.com from any one of these different channels and kind of have a landing spot there. So we promote it through all those means, but kind of let people know that's always going to be the resource for kind of the important information they need. They can always come back to there and link to it in all these different venues.
Yeah. Steve, you kind of addressed this earlier on in our conversation, but back, when you went off on your own and decided to start the blog, if you hadn't decided to start the blog and you had gone out on your own, what do you think the difference would have been? I mean, what impact do you think the blog has had overall on where you started from and where you got to today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's massive. I mean, just tracing those numbers now, maybe I would have come up with something else, but it's hard to really think what else would have met all the criteria that I needed trying to market to a national audience, trying to do it without a whole lot of money to get there, trying to do something that would get my name out and would get people to call. It's really hard to think about what else could have gotten us to where we are now, where it's not just me, but we've got a firm of people and a good niche practice that I think has a good long-standing reputation in the industry. So yeah, I can't quantify it, but I really believe it's been the single biggest driver of my success coming out of and starting my own practice and of our firm's success once it was more than just me. So I'm all in on the blog as far as we go in terms of its effect on. For all I know, I wouldn't even be doing government contracting if I hadn't blogged. I'd be doing some other kind of law because I wouldn't have had enough clients. I don't know.
You'd be doing bankruptcy with Shane.
Maybe, or he'd be doing my bankruptcy because I would have had to file after not having any clients.
Yeah. Shane, I don't know if you ever get other lawyers asking you about blogging or about starting a blog, but assuming somebody did ask you, what kinds of advice would you give them about it?
A couple things. Probably the first one would be to kind of be consistent about it. Make it part of your daily or weekly schedule so that you're kind of staying on top of it and building up the content there so you can keep your readership, so you can have sort of a baseline of content for people to look at. And the other thing is, it's a marketing tool, but the other nice thing about the blog is it sort of lets you, it gives you an opportunity to write in a different style. So kind of use that as almost just a way to sort of change gears during the day when you're not writing something in a legal argumentative style. And then maybe the other thing is that you can use it just as while it's a great marketing tool and it's a great way to bring prospective clients in, it's also kind of just a good resource for a lot of government people and business people. So you kind of feel good sometimes that you're really able to get that information out there and almost providing a service while still doing marketing at the same time. So it kind of has a plethora of benefits that you can use to motivate yourself to stay on schedule and keep putting out some different blog posts.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about the benefit of it. I mean, you really are doing a service when you're publishing this, and you're not charging anybody for it. So that's a good thing. Steve, what about you? Would somebody ask you for advice? What do you have to share about that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with absolutely everything Shane said. I mean, if you're really starting fresh and you never done it before, I would recommend doing what we did. And I know Kevin's O'Keefe has recommended in some times as well, which is starting the blog on an independent website rather than built into your firm site. I really think that has helped make the blog look less markety to people than informative. So I think there's definitely value in doing that. I really would emphasize Shane's point about sticking with it. There's a person I know, an attorney that's also in the government contracts field, who I was going back and forth with on email one day, and I saw on his footer it says blog, this blog, and his email or a web address. I said, I didn't know he had a blog. Let me click on it and read it. I clicked on it. The last post was like a year and a half ago, and right. So he's right. And so you got to know yourself. If it's just going to be you as the author, you got to know that you really are going to stick with it, even when things get busy. that you're really going to be consistent, even if it's just once a week, whatever the case is, and know that's the right tool for you. And if it's multiple authors, then I think doing what Shane did and putting in a calendar and just making it part of the culture is really, really important. And don't expect success overnight. Your readership is going to be low at first. It's just the nature of the beast, and ours has gone up over the years, but it takes a little while to get into the ecosystem out there and get that readership going.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point about, and as you say, Kevin O'Keefe makes this often about maintaining a distinct website and URL for your blog as apart from your firm. I mean, it really helps establish it as an independent publication, really, and as a effectively as a brand in and of itself. And I think that's really important. Every so often, I remember that I actually have a website in addition to my blog. I basically forget about it most of the time. I'm so focused on my blog. So that's great. Well, thank you very much to both of you for taking the time to be with us today. It was a real pleasure to have you.
Well, thanks, Bob. Really appreciate it. Certainly been following you for years. It's nice to have the opportunity to speak with you and be part of this program.
Yeah, very much. Thank you very much. Glad to do it.
Yeah, thanks. So we've been speaking with Steve Koprince and Shane McCall of Koprince Law and of the blog SmallGovCon.com. And you have been listening to This Week in Legal Blogging, which is presented by LexBlog. Find out everything about LexBlog at lexblog.com/products. And as I said earlier, you can we've got months and months of programs, interviews with bloggers now lined up at youtube.com/LexBlog. A lot of really interesting conversations just like today's. Check it out. And I hope you'll join us again next week for another episode of This Week in Legal Blogging. This is Bob Ambrogi. Thanks for listening.